Welcome to our third and final installment of our Music Man Zoom interviews. And we've talked to cast members, we've talked to members of our artistic team. And today we're talking to some of our leaders at Grace, our lead pastor, Barry Rodriguez, and our pastor of operations, Jeff Unruh, and then also a highly invested volunteer, Liv Rodriguez, who has been part of our shows and will be part of them in the future, I'm sure, to come. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we do theater at Grace. I mean, we're a church, and that's not something that happens all the time at every local church. They're not doing full-scale productions. So I guess the first question would be, I was going to have you guys introduce yourselves, but then I kind of did it for you. But you can say who you are. Liv, I guess they know who you are, but we could distinguish between Jeff and Barry, right?
Barry has hair.
Okay, so yeah,
Not much.
There you go.
Hi,
I think
oh, go ahead. I was going
Go
to introduce
ahead.
myself.
You are
Hi, I am Olivia's husband, Barry Rodriguez.
perfect. That is perfect. And you are not my husband, Jeff Unruh.
No, it's
My
Stuart.
husband. Yes, my
Jeff.
work, right.
Currently serving as the pastor of operations.
But your role before pastor of operations was
Most recently as pastor of worship arts at the time, creative arts. And previous to that, I had a few other roles with interns and young adults and kind of front end newcomer welcome and assimilation. Yeah.
your pastor of worship arts role you did for 15 years.
Yeah, 2004 through 2019.
So you were around. I just want to give a little bit of history as to why we started doing this. The first show that we did was a short dinner theater, dessert theater, actually, play. It was an hour-long play that we wrote back in 1998. And then it has grown to what it has become. There were probably 30 people in that cast, and there was no music, and it's grown to what it is now. Can you share a little bit, Jeff, of what you remember from that era and what we were kind of doing and what you've seen it progress to now?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there were three different things that were kind of flowing all into that first full-scale production. The first was that from day one, Grace had been a church that utilized drama in the weekend service to help illustrate message themes and concepts to raise questions before people would speak. And so we've been using that since day one, since 1991. So that was we'd always had short sketch length dramas leading up to that. The previous year, all of 98, we had done a kind of continuing series. We were doing, I think, a look through the entire scripture. Maybe it was all Old Testament. Maybe it was new. Gosh, I can't remember.
I know it was Old Testament because
I think maybe it was just all Old Testament themes throughout 98. And we used a recurring couple and their friends and people, associates. I think we did that drama or used that cast 13 times during that year. And somewhere in the fall, I think this idea, late summer, this idea came, what if we took that cast, those people, and created something full length from it. And we had previously, the year before was the year we moved into the building we are currently in, and we had done a kind of a open house, welcome to the neighborhood event that utilized arts of various kinds. And it was very well received. And so we thought, this could be a really cool opportunity to open our doors again, to not only invite our congregation to attend, but it could be something that people from church could invite other people to attend and come. And so, we built on the historical things we had done, and we took this concept that had evolved over the year, and then Amy, you took the lead on creating a full-length show based loosely on Gifts of the Magi by L. Henry. And we did Simple Gifts in 1998 for that Christmas.
And then the two years after that, we did our first full length musical, which was Wonderful Life the musical. And do you remember that we didn't have services that weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty controversial. I think
Yeah.
by then, 2001, 2000,
It was
we
2000. Yeah.
we had grown to the point where we had multiple services on the weekend and we couldn't figure out how to do it all. And
So we shut down services and we did a show instead
Yeah.
that weekend.
we did.
And yeah, we used it as a really invitational event. It was Christmas time, so we were like, bring your friends to the show and then invite them back for the rest of the month. I'm not sure how we got away with that. We never did it again. We never shut down services again, but
No.
But that's how it started. And I guess Barry, you've been around. You grew up at Grace, so you've been around for all of this too. But how have you seen it grow since that initial? I mean, we were in the older auditorium at that time. We've now since built a new auditorium. We have expanded the size of cast, the size of orchestra, the just kind of the whole capacity of the entire show is so much bigger now. How have you seen that grow and morph, and have you seen changes in that from the beginning iterations?
Well, first of all, I'm wondering, maybe we could have like alleviated a lot of the problems if we had just had like communion instead of concessions. I think that
Yeah.
would have been great. Canceling church here.
We totally should have done that.
Well, you mentioned a lot of the ways that we've grown, practically speaking. Bigger orchestra, bigger cast, bigger, all the stuff is bigger and has gotten more elaborate and more intentional. But I think one of the ways that's grown that is, I think, really exciting to me is the fact that we've grown both in who is coming to be a part of our musicals. We've got people who are not a part of Grace that want to be a part of this theater community, and that has led to people finding community that didn't have it before, and that's really, really cool. It's also grown in, I guess I'll use the word reputation in the community, where people now are beginning to get it that like, oh, Grace Church does legit musicals. Like this is like the upper tier of community theater. This is not just like your grandma's church musical or whatever. I'm sure your grandma had great church musicals,
Right.
so don't get me wrong. But I remember vividly hearing about a couple that they loved Les Mis, I guess, a lot, and they actually drove from Ohio to come and see when we did Les Mis. They wanted to see it so they could make fun of it, because they thought, let's go see the worst performance of this ever, and they left in awe because they were like, wow, that was actually really great. And you see that when we do Little Mermaid. Obviously, kids love the mermaids and all this stuff, but like, and the princesses, but we had 10,000 people or so from our community come to see that show. And now we're expanding out. We're able to do school day shows. We're able to do shows for people in nursing homes. Like it's just really cool how we've built up the reputation, I guess, of what we're doing to be able to reach into the community in new ways.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, Barry captured it pretty well.
Yeah, great. I think one thing that it continues to sort of amaze me, I guess, is that over the years, I think both intra-cast and out from there has been a great deal of, Barry mentioned it, like community built, but there's a lot of intentionality in that as well, for people to really, they spend a lot of time together in rehearsal. They spend a lot of time together backstage. It's a very kind of intimate and like a lot of time together spent to really build a relationship, and that's been a huge. I don't know if it's. I mean, I think the shows initially came out of the desire for the artists at Grace to have a place to use their gifts and to serve together and to build community together. And so that's always been a core of that. I think we've just been more intentional over the years to capitalize on what's happening, because it is a very unique experience when a group of people spend months together preparing one thing. I think Olivia can probably expand on that. more than anyone could, just in terms of her own personal experience of that. But that's huge. But then the overflow of that, I think, is felt by the people who come and attend. There's something that happens among those people. Not only are they creating together, but they're also communing together, and that is what's felt, along with the talent, along with the quality of what's happening on stage, and it draws people back. And so, really, since I think in 11, when we redid Sound of Music for the second time, which was not the first show in the new auditorium, that was Godspell.
Yeah.
But it was a much smaller cast and a smaller scale. It was a great show, but it was not of the same scale. But once we hit 2011, the end of that year, we did Sound of Music, and I think we had 7,000 to 8,000.
Yeah.
That was kind of the first, wow, there's a new plateau here. And then when we hit around 10 with Les Mis, it's never been under that since then for the last 9 years. Yeah.
Yeah, we built a reputation for both artists in our community that want to be a part of what we're doing because there's something really special that happens, and we hear that over and over again from people that have done theater outside of Grace and then come and they're like, wow, this is special. And they keep returning and they keep coming back because they want to be a part of that again. And then our audience that just keeps returning because now they know they're going to see something really, really good and be kind of like there's like transcendent moments that happen in the midst of our shows. And I think the audience feels that as much as the cast, crew, and orchestra do. So how do you think it aligns with our values, what we doing these shows and inviting the community in, inviting the actors in? And this is for all, any of the three of you could answer this.
Well, one of our values is life to the fullest. And by saying that, what we mean is that we believe, like, if we have truly been saved by Jesus, if we truly are, new creation people, then it is incumbent upon us to bring beauty and life and joy into our world. I don't think Christians are meant to be somber, sad, boring people. I think we are meant to show the world what's possible, and part of that involves using our gifts and our skills to bring delight and to bring joy and to bring wonder into the world, because those are the things that God invented, and we get to steward that. So I love that when we do musicals, we get to show the world again what's possible, show the world the creative spark that is inside of us, that's given to us by our Creator. So that's cool. I also think our value of make room is a pretty significant one. We make room. That's part of what it means to be at Grace Church. And usually we talk about that in terms of making room for people who don't think the same or look the same or have the same age or abilities. And in the musical, I mean, that is always on full display. It's very intergenerational. We're making room for people in our community, outside of our community, people with disabilities. It's a real beautiful expression of what that value looks like at Grace, to be made up of so many people, of so many different ages, abilities, all of that working together for the same good, to bring beauty into the world. It's awesome.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add to that? Liv, do you want to speak to at all the whole idea of that make room value, of what that means to be part of a cast where that is, because we are so intentional about making room, especially like the multi-generational piece of it. Like I usually, if it's not innately in the script that there's different generations, I'll make sure that we add things so that it's there. What is that? How do you think that heightens and impacts the cast to have all of those people together?
Yeah, it creates such a larger sense of community and camaraderie with the show, because every actor, every crew member, every crew hand is treated the same. So whether we have someone in a wheelchair in that show, or we have someone on the spectrum, or we have someone who can't do the same physical aspects, or we have a lead who has been in so many different shows, or has so much experience, or someone like me who had absolutely no musical theater experience, we're all treated the same. So every piece of that puzzle, the painters in the shop who are painting a train, the actors who are on stage, even the folks who don't have a line or have all of the lines are an integral part of the show. And that's something you really emphasize with each character having their own backstory and having their own whole character significance in the show adds to the show. You can tell that it adds to the show on stage. And that gives each person a chance to discover new artistic, fun things about themselves. So it's enriching for that lead. It's enriching for the person in the back. It doesn't matter. We treat everybody the same with the shows. And that is just something I don't think you find many other places to express that and to we intentionally expand our we intentionally stretch ourselves in what we can do with each person. So for like if one year we have someone in a wheelchair, Lori choreographs that number with that in mind. If we have someone who has physical handicaps who wants to be a part of the crew, we figure out what that looks like. And so every year, in a sense, is a new challenge and a new opportunity to include more people.
Yeah. The other value I think that it hits on, and this kind of came to me this particular show, I don't know why, theater is so much about you. Like it is so easy to make it about. And I think we really hold to the value as we go through the process, the rehearsal process, the build process, the orchestra process, that all of it, that it's not about me. And I think that shows on stage. And for you've all been in a show. So do you see that playing out as we go through? I mean, you touched on it a bit there, Liv, talking about we make room for that. That certainly is trying to make it not about us, but the theater can be so much about, this is my time to shine. And I was just talking to somebody about this, that they mentioned that they thought years ago that someone's performance was a little over the top. And I looked back on that and I said, that's because it was about them. And they weren't sharing the space with the other actors, and they were more concerned about how they looked than they were about how everybody else on stage looked. So can you speak to that concept of like putting the other first, I guess, as we go through rehearsals and stuff?
Yeah, there's just a different there is a different air that we're breathing in the shows that everyone is breathing at the same time. So I think the tone is set right when you come into auditions and say, I want this to be the best audition process you've ever had, if other people have that experience. And it immediately takes the pressure off of needing to be perfect and worrying about just yourself. So all of a sudden you're talking to the person next to you in the audition as soon as Amy says that, because you're not as nervous as you thought you were, or you're getting smiled at the whole time when you're so nervous auditioning, and getting questions and getting personal questions and being cared for. So all of those things really set the tone for going into auditions, and looking after one another in auditions and encouraging each other really helps the people in the cast get out of the way. It's very collaborative as well. So when we're diving into our little characters in the back, we're having so much fun that like it is really hard to kind of make it all about yourself when some of us have been doing it for a little while, some of us it's their first time, and we're all just sharing this big experience. It's so much fun that you can't help but get out of yourself and get out of your head, so it really does feel like a family when you're going through it. And then when you get to Tech Week and start doing the shows with the cast, with the crew and the ushers and the lighting and the staff who's all around and everybody's buzzing. It's a different air that you're breathing is so joyful that you get out of your own way.
Yeah, that's a really good way to describe it.
it's interesting to think,
Go ahead.
we just named 4 of the values, but I was also thinking of put me in, coach, obviously, because people in a variety of artistically inclined or not, in some ways technically inclined, in other ways there is a place for so many people to use their gifts and to find a
Yeah.
place to involve. And we may touch on this when we get into, like we mentioned, the future things, but another value I think I would love to see us play into is we go there. And I think there's room in theater for us to do some things that may hit on some themes that allow us to ask some questions and have some conversations in a safer way than we could do a sermon series on them and those kinds of things. So be fun to talk about that and explore that a little bit. There's some really great shows that introduce some really interesting themes that would be interesting for us to pursue.
Yeah.
Cats.
Maybe not.
That would, hey, we go there,
Cats.
Jeff.
We go there. We're going to all dress up like cats and meow.
Yeah. Oh, please.
It's not better.
So one other thought, as you guys were talking about this, like, it's not about me value. This is probably also because we don't have the actual space for this, but all of our cast share one green room. There aren't like specialty, there's like one room that someone could use if they needed it, but we don't have like specialty rooms for like the stars of the show, and then everyone else is slumming it in the, it's like everybody's slumming it in the green room, and it's packed because our shows keep
And it's
getting bigger
hot.
every year. But it's this beautiful, like you said, it was buzzing. It's this family atmosphere, and it really is like the stars of the show. The leads are sitting back in the back, and often are related to other people who are in the show. So it genuinely is a giant family. So I love it. It's not about me.
I also love watching those with more experience come alongside those with less experience, and there's never a division. It's how can I help you be better, and how can I learn from you? Because sometimes the new people come in and they're new to it, so they don't have all the training and the stuff that you need to sometimes kind of strip away, and they come in and just naturally do it, and it's just a beautiful it is a beautiful collaboration of giftedness and experience, and I love watching that take place. I think we've kind of really touched on like the communal and spiritual aspects, but Liv, do you want to share at all like the impact that it had on you the first time you did it?
Would love to. I'm not a musical theater person at all.
You are now.
I hadn't been a
You
musical
weren't-
theater person
yes.
at all until about 2 years ago, when I auditioned for The Little Mermaid. And I auditioned on a whim, and I almost canceled my audition because my sister couldn't do it with me. And I did it out of protest of a value of I'm going to follow through and I'm going to do it. And I was nervous out of my mind to do it. And I got a part as a mermaid in The Little Mermaid, and I had other mer sisters that I was with the whole time. And I still can't describe, I could cry at any moment because of how that show impacted me straight to the heart. Life is stressful, and when you're an adult, there are so few things that you can just have so much fun and worry about nothing else. And I had dealt with so much anxiety at that point in my life and my whole life, and was nervous every time I was on stage in any capacity at church. And I was not anxious that entire show, because the whole time in my head, I kept thinking, this is way too much fun to be anxious about it. You better not have any other emotion than happiness, because this is so much fun. How many times do you get to sing and dance as an adult in your adult life on stage? Just the physical, the emotional, the mental weight that is lifted when you're just having fun is something I think is lost in our culture. Just having fun. So that was a huge thing. But then all of a sudden you bring in all these people that you're having fun with, and that creates community so fast. And you get to know people so quickly, from all their little quirks and dancing and struggling together and having so much fun together, that you create a bond so fast and so strong. So I met all my Mer sisters, and quite a few in the crew, backstage, and a couple of the older women who mentored us during this show. We had a random dinner during the run of the show, and that rolled into a small groups soon after the show ended. And we meet still, which is pretty impressive for a group of young people to stick with it for almost 2 years. This fall we'll have been meeting, and we go deep. We share a common interest, so we all know that we love shows, and they know so much more about musical theater than I do. And when they talk in lyrics and quotes, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, they're like, oh well, it's, you know, it's Newsies. And I'm like, all right, never heard of it. And now we go to community theater shows. We're going to one tomorrow together because we all know we love that. But we all you know, being in the stress after the show, going back to our daily lives, I didn't have nearly as much of a culture shock going back to daily life after the show, because all my girls are still there. My community is so different. And even going to Grace my whole life, and having on and off friend groups, not having an adult friend group, that show created my whole community. Suddenly, as soon as I come in, I see a Jim Swanson greeting at the door, and I see a Sue, and all of that is from being in the show. I created a sense of community that I have never experienced at Grace before until I did that show. And it still is now. We have a text message happening, a group text happening all the time, and we meet at my house every Wednesday, and we're now each other's spiritual community and pretty close to being each other's just best friends. So they're all in the show this year, in some capacity. And I keep roping other people into the show and into the small group. So the bubble is expanding. And you just want everybody to have a taste of what you've had, you know, once you've like tasted that kind of fun and that kind of joy. You just want everybody else to experience it. So I just keep going around and trying to hook people in and give me your email and I'll connect you and I'll add you to this and this and this. So they can get a taste, and really God can just take it from there. And as soon as I get them plugged in, since I know what has happened to me, I know he can take it to places that you would never expect from any person with any personality. You know, any shy person who's never been on stage before to the loudest person, you know, you've ever experienced, they all find a place. And I think God has something to do with all of them in the show in some capacity.
It's really beautiful. I love
I'll
that.
stop
I love that
preaching.
story. No, it's you could, for me, you could keep talking about it forever.
And I will.
Um, I think this last question. What do we envision for the future? Jeff, you touched a little bit on, yeah, I agree. Like, there are hard conversations that the arts can open up, and make room for in people's lives that even disagree on things. That art does that. It opens your heart and your soul and your mind to things that you might not recognize in yourself, or topics that are hard that you don't want to talk about, but it makes a way for that to happen. But so I agree, there are maybe some avenues we could go down there. What other things do we think are possible in the future for the theater and the arts at Grace?
What do you think, Amy?
Oh, I wish we could just do more.
I was
But I
going to
don't think
joke,
that's
but let's
possible.
just do 4 a year. Let's
Yeah.
do it. I'm sure we could pull it off.
I have always wished that we could do more, because of the community that it creates, and watching that sustainable community is beautiful. Like, if we can provide this, and then this beautiful community grows out of it, what a great thing. I do think there are pieces there. If you were able to do more, you wouldn't have to be so choosy about what you pick. because you have the opportunity with the next show to do something completely different from the show you did. So I think there's more opportunity for shows that do go there and talk about harder things. And but we would need another space for that. So my dream would be if we had another space that we could run more shows and do it more often and get more people in. And yeah, I would love that. But you know, and run, I would love if we had an evening where we were doing classes. Like there were voice lessons happening in one area and a couple of dance classes over here and action classes. And I think that would be so fun. And you know, who knows? He's answered all sorts of dreams that I had that I never thought would come to fruition. He did it, you know, God did it in a different time frame and a different kind of path, but it got to the same result. So you never know. Never know.
I would love to see our cast grow in diversity.
Mhm.
And diversity of cultures and languages, perhaps. There are some shows you can't do unless you have a strong, diverse cast, and our congregation is getting there. But there's so much more, there's so much richness to tap into with that. And so I would love to see our community grow in that way.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
You asked about the future. I agree with all that you guys have said. I also think like the church of the future needs to acknowledge that we can't just be a holy huddle anymore. We can't just be like a little retreat from the world and we all do our own thing. Like we really need to start to serve and love our neighbors in tangible, practical ways. And I think the future of theater at Grace is kind of what you already said, Amy, is that we would potentially be able to serve our community with classes, with more opportunities, with just like asking our neighbors, what do you want to see? I mean, I would love to do a big poll of our neighbors and say, what musical would you like us to do this year? And
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not this next year, but who knows? See what they
Yeah.
want to see. Again, Cats, maybe. I'm just saying that may be
think
the
it's gonna be
thing
a
that
top
they
choice.
want. Give the
Yeah.
people what they want. But all that to say, I really
Absolutely.
do think we can continue to grow in this in the way that we connect with our community and serve our community. I love the fact that we're so intentionally inviting nursing homes and retirement communities to be a part of this show. But I mean, why not do that every year? Let's make it a normal thing. I love that we have school shows usually, and let's do more of that. That's kind of what I'm dreaming of.
Yeah, I agree.
If we can get to a place where the bigger shows make enough money, then in other times of the year or in off years or whatever, we could do some more experimental things. We could also potentially take some shows on the road. We
Yeah.
talked about serving partners, taking a cast to Australia, taking a cast to Nairobi, taking a cast somewhere else, where we could help provide an outreach opportunity in a different culture, a different environment that could be intriguing. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to build bridges and use the arts in a way that would expand reach and expand the kingdom.
Yeah, I love the idea of taking a part of a cast from here and then casting the rest of it where we go, so that and you do like a expedited rehearsal process where you rehearse for literally like 10 days and you put the show up. And then you've got, you know, multiple cultures coming together to put a show on. I think that could be really beautiful and really incredibly meaningful. So it would take a lot of work to get there, but it could be done. I think it could be done. So, well, thank you for sharing with me. And I just want to remind people out there that are watching this that tickets are on sale as we speak, gracechurch.us/theater. We would love for you to come. We also have a VIP event that you could be a part of to learn more about Meredith Willson and the background of the Music Man. It's a pretty intriguing story about how that show came to be and just the elements of community and how a community can be an instrument of change in someone's life, and how music also can change people's lives. So there's a lot of fun stuff to hear at our VIP event that has the Great American Songbook friends coming to share some of that with us. So thank you all for sharing with me and with our community. And it's going to be such a great show. Please, you don't want to miss it. Grab a friend or three and come see it. So thanks for joining us. And thank you all for being on this Zoom call with me.